Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Jeff Evenson. He's been safeguarding Compeer Financial against cyber attacks and other threats since joining the company in 2015. In his current role as Senior Security Analyst, he leads Compeer Financial initiatives in information security, physical security, and business continuity. Jeff has a bachelor's degree in computer and information sciences from the University of Maryland, University Colleges, and has earned numerous cybersecurity certifications during his career. He is a member of the FBI's InfraGard Association to protect U.S. critical infrastructure elements, including those related to finance and agriculture. Please help me and welcome Jeff Evenson.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting starting with the last topic of the day because I'm the one standing between you and the barbecue. I'm willing to have this be interactive, so if there's any questions that come up along the way, don't hesitate to, throw your hand up or throw a brick, whatever you want. If more people coming on in. So, I had an opportunity today to listen to a lot of the different presentations, and one of the things that was interesting as people talked about all the different types of technology coming to the pork industry, I often don't hear anybody talking about the cybersecurity aspects of what it means when you bring that technology in to your company or your production. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we should be concerned about cybersecurity. Now, are there producers here in the room? Couple? Do you have people within your organizations that focus on cybersecurity? Anybody? Yes? Are there any cybersecurity professionals in the room? Okay. Cool. So let's dive in. Sometimes and I'll figure out the hang of this pointer here. Why are we going to talk about cybersecurity? Really, if you're paying attention to anything going on in cybersecurity, you likely can open up the newspaper every single day and find out that there's some company or corporation or organization has been hacked. It's in the news every day, and I read again this morning that there was a company down in Florida. I wasn't aware of this company, but apparently they sit there and they build a database on all of us, and they reported a hack that their systems had been breached. They don't know when. But they believe it released over 350 million records, which is pretty much the whole population of the United States, into the wild. And we're not talking about just your name and address and all that kind of stuff. This was information, they try to piece together profiles of people, what kind of, what are your shopping habits? What do you like to buy? What kind of products do you use? And the list goes on and on. So keep an eye on that. There's going to be more coming out about that. So before we can go into what we're doing with cybersecurity, let's talk about some of the other things that are in the news. Have you heard of Equifax and the big breach? Okay. Well, it was the largest breach. It went down in history as the largest breach for 2017. And they lost, 143 million, and depending on when you look in the news for an update, they're up to 150 million. And I read in the news today that, when they first reported this hack, if you wanted to see if your information was breached, you could go to an Equifax website. Well, it turns out that the website, the web developer, was judged or fined today and put in jail for insider trading violations because he started building this website before all the news was breaking and all that kind of stuff. And so he, through his wife's account, went through and sold a bunch of stock and whatnot. It was trying to get out of Equifax. It's insider trading. So it's kind of crazy how it goes. But it comes down here is what they said, negligent security practices, and it was an old vulnerability that allowed hackers to get in. And let that stew for a little bit. We're going to go on. DocuSign, okay? Another huge company where a lot of us rely on these digital services to move documents electronically. You can send them to somebody, have them sign it, and they can, that can be considered official recognition. Gone are the days where you had to have somebody actually sign the piece of paper. It's, the hackers are very creative when they're putting together their attacks. I've seen, we as cyber professionals, we study the tactics, and I've seen scripts and tools that would allow them to basically go into your company, to any web page out there, and completely replicate that web page, and replace the links, the web links that are in there, with their own in less than a minute. It'll look just like DocuSign, and that's what this fish actually looked like. It was a phishing attack, and there, if you want to hear some good information about it, go to this website here, Krebs on Security. This guy is phenomenal in his journalistic reporting about the security hacks out there. In fact, his life has come under threat many times from some of these malicious third-party people. But data was limited to customer and user email addresses, so a little more information about ourselves, gets out there. But that was a classic phishing attack. Orbitz, a travel website, 880,000 payment cards. So you never know if you store your payment information on a website when they ask you, hey, do you want to store your credit card information? What do you think my default answer is? No. Okay. But do you think I get my credit card out every time I want to do an online transaction? No, I use a password manager that helps me. It's a tool, it's a very secure tool that helps me fill that stuff in, and I don't have to rely on companies like Orbitz to store my credit card information through their website access. Because if their website gets hacked, that could be one of my credit cards sitting out there in the 880,000. But what's interesting here is they gained access to a legacy platform. And what that means is Orbitz was likely in the process, of replacing or updating their systems. And the hackers found some of the old hardware sitting out there that hadn't been migrated off the network yet. Okay, and I've seen companies do this where that's an old system. We're not going to give it the focus that it should have. We won't worry about patches and keeping things up to date. Well, you have to. You just have to. If you go back to the Equifax, before that breach, there was a patch Microsoft released the previous March from when Equifax was breached. And so even if you bring a new system online, you may still have to patch it with all the historical patches that have been published out there. Boeing, another one. It comes down to this. It was a ransomware attack by Wannacry. Anybody remember Wannacry when that hit the news? Okay. Well, Wannacry is believed to be a nation-state attack. It was funded and created by a nation-state, and it points back to North Korea. And when that hit, it launched a ransomware attack when it was first released out in Europe. In the UK, it completely shut down 16 hospital systems just by somebody clicked on a phishing link, opened up the attack onto their computers, and that once that malware gets into the system, it will spread to anything those computers are connected to. And when it's done spreading, it encrypts, And then it flashes up a screen that says, if you want to unlock all of your data, pay us money. That's what ransomware is about. The city of Atlanta, we were talking about ransomware, recently this year was shut down for a couple weeks because of ransomware. And it cost them over $10 million to recover their essential city services. The ransomware shut down everything the city used to manage the city, with the exception of emergency services. All done remotely. Boeing was no exception. A variant of Wannacry came across, and it got through. They downplayed it because they were. It was easier for them to recover. They had good backup systems and all that kind of and all that kind of stuff in place. And they actually have a cyber SOC, a Security Operations Center. You know, Boeing is a pretty large company worldwide. And so they have a Security Operations Center that detected that, and they were able to react pretty quickly. Under Armour, this is one of my favorite ones I talk about within our own company training. We've heard of Under Armour, right? They make fitness apparel. I've seen some people walking around today with backpacks from Under Armour. Anybody in here use an application called MyFitnessPal? Me? All right. They had a breach. Lost over 150 million users, and what was interesting about this breach was that it released usernames and passwords along with your email. Okay? So if you have bad password hygiene, that's what I call it, before, I'll give you for example, before I started using a password manager a couple years ago, I would use the same 1 to 3 passwords to log into all my websites. Okay? Anybody in here, kind of know what, as I get older, it's like those are the 3 I know. Okay? Well, what happens? What are hackers going to do with usernames and passwords? Okay? They're going to try it on other websites that you might have logged into, and if you use that same password on multiple websites, my advice to you today is get out there and change all those passwords. And then while you're at it, consider using a password manager. I use a password manager. I have over 300 different web accounts because I've been using it for a couple years. And I have a unique password for every one of my web logins. Okay? Thank God I don't have to remember 300 different passwords. It would be impossible. I have to remember one password now to get into my password vault for the software. And when I saw this hit the news, the only password I had to go out there and change was MyFitnessPal. I didn't have to go hit all the other websites that I might have used the same password on. Does that make sense? We use, within Compeer, we have a password manager deployed out for all the employees to use if they want. And it allows for sharing of some credentials as well. But they got through some old encryption. This SHA-1 algorithm, this encryption algorithm, has been broken for years. And it's a bad security practice to leave some of these old encryption capabilities out there. You can just do a Google search to find out which level we should be at, and SHA-2 is still viable, but I'll bet it's going to be getting close. But SHA-1, that was broken probably 6 or 7 years ago. Panera Bread, common to everybody. Who's eating there? All of us, Data stored in plain text. Plain text on a system that was exposed to the internet, and it might have migrated from that into other parts of the corporate systems. They don't know for sure. I haven't seen an after-action report on that. But when it was initially reported to Panera, they thought, nah, that's just a scam. But it got through. So when you look at the overview of root causes, okay, I think I have some motion here. Nope, not on this slide. of the companies that have experienced a cyber incident in the past 12 months, how did it take place? These are some of the common types of attacks that most companies might see. Software vulnerabilities, corporate websites, and employee error. You know, you can look at, and you get down to vendors are on the list too. People intentionally doing bad stuff. Theft of devices. Social engineering. Anybody know what social engineering is? Okay. Social engineering is where I might contact somebody in your company pretending to be somebody who I'm not. And I'm going to try to engineer information out of you so I can maybe get access. You know, I might say, hey, I'm the building repairman and I need to get access to your facility after you know, I was supposed to be there, say at 4:45, but I show up at 5:10. How can you get me in? I really need to go fix a heating unit. You know, I'm going to try to talk my way into or past your security with whatever story that I can create. I have friends who do this for a living, and what they try to do is they'll go around to thrift shops and they look for uniforms that, you know, some of these service companies may have turned in. UPS, FedEx, local repair services. And they will buy those and then wear them as part of their gig when a company hires them to try to penetrate their security boundaries. And they'll pull it off. It's phenomenal. Because people want to be nice, right? They want to be helpful. So who's doing it? Who are these people? What do they want from us? Why do they keep doing this? Because they're making money. Or if it's a nation state, they're saving money because they don't have to create the intellectual property that a lot of our companies might have. And that's a big thing. If you look at the overview of cyber attacks, I talked about this one here, the Wannacry. It's a nation state. But who are the perpetrators? You look at some of the groups of people, and I think this is the one I have motion on there. This whole block right here are people that we might have relationships to. When you break it down, they might be our employees, our competitors, okay? Vendors, partners, customers. These are people we might know. Of course, there's always the random cyber criminal. You never know when they're going to strike. They have all the time in the world to sit there and try to hack our defenses. And they're relying on us looking at things from the perspective of, I have nothing to hack. Okay? And that's not true, even down to whether it's your business or down to a personal level, there is something to hack. I read today that it was also from Krebs on security. He released a new report today talking about putting a stake in the sand, you know, where a lot of times we might have elderly people in our lives that aren't on the internet, or we know people that just don't take time to get on the internet. And some of the people in the security circles are starting to make the argument that we maybe need to take time to get out there and establish our stake in the sand and grab our online digital identities, because hackers are actually creating identities around people that they know are not on the internet. Okay? Kids' social security numbers, we've been advising, we've been seeing reports for parents. You know, what's the first thing we do as a new parent when we add an addition to our family? We go get a social security number for them, right? Because we want the tax break. Well, hackers sit there and they'll look for inactive social security numbers, which they're likely going to be inactive because they're new, and they will grab them and create false identities around these social security numbers and go out and extend all kinds of credit against them. Okay, using that, they'll create a whole identity around that person. And sometimes you may not discover that until your kid turns 18, they go try to get some credit, and the creditors are going to go, ah, there you are. By the way, you owe us $800,000, you know, whatever. These are things that most of us aren't thinking about. Data breach stats, you know, when you look at hackers, and, you know, we always look at, from our perspective at Compeer Financial, we try to look at, we'll never come at it with the attitude that we're never going to be hacked, okay? It comes down to, it's when, not if, kind of prospects nowadays. Because a security professional can never stand in front of you and tell you that your systems are 100% secure. Because there's always somebody out there trying to get around that. And if you publicly go out there and say, we're 100% secure, you put down the gauntlet. Hackers worldwide are going to put the target on you and try to figure out how to get in. But if you look at some of the studies that have been done on the previous hacks, 191 days, these people have been rooting around our systems, not Compeer's, but the hacked systems before they were detected. And then once they detect that the data breach has occurred, it takes them at least another 2 months to remediate it, to get it cleaned up. Okay? And a lot can happen in those 2 months. I saw an example I think it was in the first, well, it was the presentation before lunch from the guy talking about, is your company in the headlines, you know, where one of the companies actually closed down because they had such a damage to their reputation after whatever that incident was. This can happen. If you can't get something contained, your reputation, your company's reputation could be on the line. Can you sustain a data breach? Some of the larger companies seem to be able to do that, but the smaller companies, you can find stats out there that it's just easier for them to close. They can't sustain it financially. So what does it mean? Expect to be attacked, okay? So here's where I encourage people, are you on the internet? Is your company on the internet? And if you're on the internet, do you have the right security controls in place? Do you have the right people looking at your systems to make sure that things are protected? Can you think of any individual group, and this pertains to this industry, any group that does not like your company or industry? Okay? We've all heard of people, we call them the hacktivists. Maybe they don't like what is being done in the swine industry. Do you move funds? Does your company move funds electronically? Okay. We see this, it's almost a daily occurrence where we will see, if not a weekly occurrence, within Compeer, requests to transfer funds, okay, from illegitimate people trying to pretend to be one of our clients, all right? And we have procedures in place to validate that. We go through and validate every time we get a wire transfer request to make sure that it's the right person asking for the funds to be transferred. But you can read stories in the newspaper all the time where funds have been moved between banks and all that kind of stuff. And if you discover that you were taken over by one of those scams, 30 seconds can pass before you go, oh shoot, that shouldn't have happened. Pick up the phone to your bank, hey, can you hold those funds? Those funds could be gone. It's all done electronically. Poof, thin air. Okay, and then, do you deal internationally? I heard some presentations today where we have, there's quite a bit of the industry that deals around the world with other countries. And these are countries you might have to to be concerned about. It's not, these things are not a prediction. This is really a call for you to do your own risk assessment. Look at these things as a business risk. The presentation, if you were here right after lunch, the first one this afternoon, the guy was talking about some of the great technology opportunities that are out there. Some cool stuff. I was fascinated to know all of these things that are available. But what kind of risk will you be introducing to your company? Does anybody step back and ask that question? Well, what risk am I bringing into the company? You have to look at it from a business risk. And this is my lead into, really, are you concerned yet? Up to this point, have I scared you enough yet? Okay? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get your attention here. Because a lot of times, the way we think about security, this is why cybersecurity is so successful, is the hackers are anticipating that we are not paying attention. And I'm here to tell you that if you are part of a company, security is not someone else's concern. Just because, and these are dialogues, these are conversations we have even within Compeer, because we've gone out, I've spent the last 3 months on the road visiting all, as many branch offices as I can, making the pitch and pleading to our team members. We have 1,200 employees in Compeer, 5 security people dedicated to doing security full time. But the reality still is we cannot do security by ourselves. We have to rely on every team member in that company to help us with security. It's, if I could rewrite like the job description for everybody at every company, I'm going to have just a bullet in there that says, cybersecurity is one main focus of your job. Digital security, however you want to word that. Just because you're in sales, or you're in appraisal, or you're in let's switch it over to swine, you're in husbandry, does that mean you don't have time to worry about security? Absolutely not. You have to worry about it. It's not for someone else to worry about. And the mentality of, I don't have anything anyone would want to steal, BS. There's something that somebody can use against you, or your company, or your operation. Think about, we saw a slide, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about IoT devices a little bit later on too, but if any part of your operation is connected, we've had interaction with other operations where they have said that their feed system is connected to the internet, so they can get the statistics and all that kind of stuff through the web and whatnot. And hackers got in there and shut down the feed system for 24 hours. What does that do to an operation? When you're dealing with animals? A lot. Is your HVAC system, your heating controls, your cooling controls for all your barns and whatnot, are they accessible by the internet? What if somebody got in there and shut the ventilation systems off? We know that animals can overheat fast, right? So think about that. Do you have redundancies in place? Are there people watching this, or is it just someone else's job? So we get into, I don't care if I get hacked, there's nothing valuable in my email. It's a great example. If somebody hacks your email, I want you to sit back and think about it, whether it's your personal email or your corporate email. How much information are you discussing about your operations, your business, or your personal life in your email? Huh? You have 10 minutes left? Okay. So if somebody hacks that, they're going to be able to harvest all kinds of information about what you're doing or what your business is doing, your operation. All right? So pay attention to that. Is cybersecurity a top concern for you? They've done some studies here over the next 12 months, when they talk to CEOs and stuff, where does cybersecurity fall on their list of concerns? It's number 4 on their list. Okay, of course, industry changes, business model disruptions, all that, changing global stuff, but cybersecurity is right up there at the top. Okay, it needs to be. What are some barriers to good security? Concerns about impacts on performance and business process. Okay, well, we don't want to put security in. I hear this all the time when we're doing business consulting for even within our own company. It's like, well, security is just going to slow things down. Well, 1, not necessarily. And 2, would you rather have them slowed down or have a hacker come in and shut down your operations for a couple days? Okay. Complexity. Security's too hard. Not anymore. And if you're having trouble in your own operations, then seek help to bring it in. Lack of perceived need. I'm a small enough operation, nobody's going to pay attention to us. Lack of budget. Lack of organizational buy-in or priority, or lack of staff to manage. Okay. IoT devices, I already talked about that, the impact of having that on the cloud. There was a recent report out there with IoT devices where some malware was launched, and they were able to take over all of the security cameras that were web controlled, and there were over 500,000 of them so far because of some bad software written into the firmware of the camera. Well, how many operations do we have going where, I don't want my security feeds out in the public. I have security cameras at home that I play around with, around my home property. And I'm not doing anything weird, but I don't want that on the internet. I don't need my life out there on the internet, but I have good security around that. So what about the technology you use? I touched on some of those. Fan controls, feed controls, security video. Those are all things to think about. So bring it closer to home.
Did you make the transfer to Hong Kong for the Emerson project?
I was just about to, but did you see the boss's email? It doesn't look right.
It looked fine to me.
I don't remember him mentioning the Emerson project at our last meeting.
The bank in Hong Kong closes in 15 minutes. Make the transfer.
Yes, sir. It's on the way.
Mr. Jacobs, just transferred the money for the Emerson project.
What Emerson project?
Don't be that guy. Trust but verify.
Yeah, the FBI has been huge in reporting and giving information out to the industry about what they call business email compromise. It's a type of phishing where people are going to try to pretend they're some, maybe the CEO of the company, like this one here, and please process it'll have some kind of wiring instructions in there. Here's an example we've seen at Compeer from the president, the CEO of Compeer, sending an email instruction to just somebody over in finance, okay? Well, typically our CEO is not going to be asking people to do wire transfers, And so those were flags. You can look at it, and the email address here looks all kind of funny. It's not part of Compeer and whatnot. But these work. There are, and what they'll do is they'll watch for a company to be in the news and say, hey, they're going through a shift in leadership. Okay, so old CEO out, new CEO coming in. Those are opportunities to attack. Okay. If you know anything about Compeer Financial, we just completed a merger about a year ago of 3 associations. And from our security perspective, it's like, oh boy, that's a big target of opportunity because that's all in the news. Hey, 3 associations merging into one. Okay, suggestions there, be aware of your appeal as a target. Use payment verification processes. Really have a plan. Confirm your requests when you're dealing with business email compromises. Have a plan in place. Phishing attacks. Do you know what phishing is? Anybody, quick refresher? Phishing is you might get an email and a lot of times it'll say, hey, your invoice is attached, you got 72 hours to pay. If you don't pay that, you're going to get, incur some interest charges. Okay? So you open the attachment and it opens up some malware on the computer and they might take control of your computer and whatnot. So these are some of the successful training evolutions that if there's a simulated attack, we do some of these at Compeer. Sometimes our team members really dislike the security team because we phish them. We have a simulator that will constantly go out and try to phish them so we can train every one of our team members how to recognize a phish. Some more phishing examples, Google Docs, Well, Google Docs isn't going to have an email address like that, okay? Review.com, and when you hover the mouse over this link, it shows this link. Has nothing to do with Google Docs. Okay, so there's a telltale signs that you can look at in suspicious emails. Here's the one where review the report in attachment. If you want to avoid a penalty, pay in 72 hours. What is the impact? Loss of productivity. You can shut down systems. You can lose proprietary information. Because if a hacker knows that they can get into a company very easily, in fact, phishing is like the 52% type, out of all the types of attack, phishing is over 50% of the types because it's easy. A hacker can come in they're expecting you to be busy, to be multitasking, to looking at your voicemail, you came back from vacation, you're catching up on emails, you're trying to do this, bam, they got you, okay? Damage to your reputation. If you get phished and a bunch of your proprietary information goes out the door, or your client database goes out the door, what will that do to your company's reputation? Could be huge. All right, here's your quiz for the day. Which link on this page would actually go to Compeer.com? And I'll give you a second to look at it, and then you can call out 1, 2, 3, or 4. Any number ones here? A couple, okay. Any number 2s in here? You got a couple there. Any number 3s? 1. How about number 4? Okay, the answer is right here, number 3. All right, because the trick is, if you look up here, yes, this has Compeer.com in the address, but you're looking for the part of the address that follows right before that first backslash. Okay? Not after the backslash. This one before the first backslash goes to here. Super secure, you can trust me.net. Okay, if that was a website, it would go there. This one right here, what you're looking for is this part and this part right before that first backslash. That's the domain of Compeer.com. These other parts in here would actually work if we had subdomains created as part of Compeer.com. And then the last one has secure-compeer.com. See how tricky that stuff is? And it's one of those, learn, teach yourself how to recognize fish, how to read web links. Don't worry, we get people in our own company with this one all the time. Now what? How to protect your business. Okay, this is where you ask, view cybersecurity as a risk, not an IT task. It's not just another IT project. If you're putting in new systems and all that, yes, it would be part of the IT project, but make sure you're looking at that from a business risk, okay? And the risk might be what countries, for example, do you allow access to your to that system? So for example, we have a whitelist. We block off countries in the world that we just don't have any business ever with, for example, Russia or China. So we block that at the firewall. We don't accept that risk as to coming into our company. Okay. Be sure this last one here, be sure you're already not compromised. You aren't already compromised, and you might have to find a partner or some security professionals to help you figure that out. Have an incident response plan. Make sure your vendors, okay, big one here, vendor relationships. Because if you allow a vendor to attach to your network, you've essentially extended the security perimeter of your network out around that vendor. Think back to the days when Target was hacked. We all shop at Target, right? Target was hacked hard. Where did the attacker come from? It came in through their HVAC vendor. Walked right across the HVAC vendor, right into Target systems. So, and you have to continually assess your risk. It's not just okay, we got it, and go back. And we do this on even within Compeer, we go back frequently, routinely, and check and double check and check and double check. We have audits. We just went through, and shoot, I had to be here today, but we've had an auditor at Compeer this week doing security audits. Because we want people to tell us, hey, did you find holes? If they did, then we repair them. Because technology it sometimes is a moving target, isn't it? And then how to protect yourself, how to, know how to spot a fish. Just take some time. Learn how to spot a fish. Read web addresses. Be careful what you browse for, If you're going to suspicious websites, rethink that behavior. Manage your passwords well. Use login aids, two-factor authentication. There's a whole list of things I could spend the whole rest of the day talking about every one of these. But that's cybersecurity in a nutshell, trying to get your attention to recognize that it's not just for the other guy anymore. It's for every one of us, whether it's on the personal front or our professional front or our student front. Whichever the case may be, we have to be aware of this. Any questions? Yes?
These package managers secure?
Who?
These package managers?
Package manager?
Yeah.
Oh, password manager? Password managers are secure, yes. The one we used that we use at Compeer, right before, with any vendor that we're about to bring into our company, we do a pretty deep dive security assessment on them. And right as we started opening talks with them, they had a data breach. And everybody says, oh, that one's off the list. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let's find out. And sometimes after a company has had a data breach, they're going to be the most secure people to operate with afterwards, because they just went through and had to button everything up again. And what we found out was with this vendor, because of how they encrypt their passwords, when you create your password vault, it will encrypt that data on the device that you're on. It encrypts it 5,000 times, and then it syncs it to the cloud. And once the vendor gets that data, it will re-encrypt that 100,000 more times. Okay? And so what the hackers got were these big blobs of information. And as part of the research I was doing on this company, I found a research report that a mathematician did. He wanted to kind of calculate mathematically how long it would take him to break that cloud, that blob, and it was 147 years with NSA level type computing power, which is a lot. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to care in 147 years. But great question. So we ended up adopting that particular vendor into our company. I use it personally as well. You have to, and it doesn't matter. They're all very good. Just learn how they encrypt the information and communicate it to the cloud. This is the big one there.
Do you have any recommendations on password managing programs?
I do.
Can I come talk to you after?
You can. I'm trying to be vendor agnostic up here. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So everybody with their cell phones, you know, we think, well, it's computer stuff. Well, how, I don't even think, or, you know, I was like, there's nothing on my cell phone, but yet, what do I use for protection there?
It's a great question. What kind of cell phone do you have? Apple? No? One of the, so an Android type phone? So you want to get some good security tools there, make sure the device is encrypted, and make sure you lock it every time, okay? Because you're right, you're walking around with a computer in your hand. It's not the typical flip phones anymore. Sometimes I wish that's what we had, were flip phones, or the little candy bar phones, you know, yes, hello? Where they just acted like phones. Sometimes I wish my phone was still wired to the wall at home. But these computers, you know, get into a good practice. Always lock the device when you're not looking at it. Don't just set it down on the table and rely on the screen lock to time out, you know, and lock itself. Because all it takes, there's, you know, if you happen to be in a taxi, for example, traveling, depending on what city you're in, a lot of cab drivers are paid money to grab your phone if you happen to leave it on the seat, and they're going to try to put it into airplane mode as quickly as they can. Okay? Why do you think they want to put it into airplane mode? Huh? So you can't find it. Turns off the tracker, the Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi connection?
Yep, it breaks all the wireless connections, whether it's to the cell service, like Verizon, or the Wi-Fi, because if once a connection is broken, you can't reach out to it to figure out where the phone is, or you can't remote wipe it. Okay? Because one, they want to try to see what kind of data is on the phone. Sometimes they might have, you know, hey, this guy, hey, it's Mark Zuckerberg's phone, you know, all kinds of stuff there. Or if there's no data, then they're going to just try to slick the phone and sell it. These guys get a lot of money to capture that. But you're right. Wherever your phone is, like my mobile phone, I have for business, we have business functions on it, business email, and we recognize that we extend, wherever the mobile device is, you're extending the perimeter of your network, your business, out to that device. Whether it's a mobile device, a laptop, a tablet, an iPad, if you can reach your company from that device, protect it. And I'm not talking necessarily about software protections. You should do that anyway, and your company probably would have some of those protections. But protect it, meaning guard it with your life. You know, I know that I set my two phones. I carry two phones, a personal one and a business one. But I set them over there. Somebody could have just snuck in and grabbed them. I'm giving Iowa State the benefit of the doubt that we don't have people like that floating around. But I accepted the risk of putting them there. Because it, you know, bulky pockets. Other questions? Anybody scared yet? Okay. Did I give you anything to think about? Yeah. All right. And that's the whole point of this. All right. Thanks for your time.